South African politics is entering a period where events are unfolding so rapidly that even long-time observers are forced to pause and reassess what they thought they understood about power, loyalty, and stability within the ruling party. Because what is happening now goes far beyond ordinary disagreements or internal debates and instead points to a deeper and more troubling shift in how authority is contested and how relationships inside the African National Congress are breaking down. This moment is not simply another dramatic headline or fleeting controversy, but a potential turning point that could reshape how the country is governed and how citizens relate to the political system, especially as African politics more broadly appears to moving through a phase of profound transformation marked by declining trust in long-standing institutions and growing public frustration. To grasp the seriousness of the situation, it is increasingly clear that relying only on daily news reports isn't enough, as mainstream coverage often focuses on surface-level drama without fully explaining the underlying force at play, which is why independent political analysis has become so essential for anyone who genuinely wants to understand what is really happening beneath the noise. At the center of the current crisis is the ANC itself, a party that once drew strength from its unity, its liberation history, and its moral authority, but which is now facing intense criticism and internal strain that many believe has reached a dangerous point. Rumors and claims circulating within political circles suggest that senior figures within the party may have been involved in the deliberate leaking of a sensitive document. A move that, if true, represents not just a breach of trust, but an escalation of internal power struggles into open warfare. The document in question is said to contain details about an alleged relationship between President Sir Ramaphosa and a businessman known as Cat Metler or Cat Metal, a name that already carries heavy baggage in South Africa due to past controversies and unresolved questions about his activities. Although these allegations have not been verified and remain unproven, their mere existence has been enough to cause widespread panic within the ANC, triggering urgent meetings, frantic phone calls, and behind-the-scenes efforts to contain the damage before it spirals out of control. What makes the situation particularly explosive is not only what the document allegedly contains, but also who is believed to have leaked it, as claims that two high-ranking officials may have acted intentionally have fueled anger and suspicion, reinforcing the perception that the party is deeply divided and that factions are willing to undermine one another in pursuit of influence ahead of critical milestones such as leadership contests and upcoming elections. For many political analysts, this leak looks less like an isolated act of misconduct and more like a calculated move in a broader struggle for power. Point 1 that exposes how fragile the ANC's unity has become after years of internal conflict, ideological drift, and unresolved corruption scandals. If the allegations were eventually proven to be true, the consequences for the ANC's credibility could be devastating. But even if they are not, the damage to public trust may already be done, because perceptions often matter more than facts in politics. And once voters believe a party is dishonest or compromised, it is extremely difficult to win back their confidence. The involvement of a controversial businessman alone is enough to reignite public anger and media scrutiny, reinforcing a narrative that the ANC has failed to break from the shadow of corruption and questionable alliances. A narrative that many South Africans are already exhausted by after years of scandals and unfulfilled promises of renewal. President Ramaphosa's response or lack thereof has become another focal point of debate, with supporters interpreting his silence as caution and a desire to wait for verified information before speaking, while critics see the same silence as evidence of indecision, weakness, or even complicity, arguing that a leader in control of his party should be able to address such a crisis decisively. This ambiguity has only heightened anxiety within the ANC, particularly among regional leaders, alliance partners, and trade union representatives who are increasingly vocal in their demands for transparency and clear action. fearing that continued uncertainty will further erode the party's standing with voters and weaken its chances in future elections. What troubles many observers most is what this episode reveals about the ANC as an organization. Because the alleged use of confidential documents as political weapons suggests a breakdown of trust so severe that members no longer believe in resolving disputes internally or protecting the collective interest of the party. For decades, ideological differences and factional rivalries were held together by a shared history and a sense of common purpose rooted in the struggle against apartheid. But that glue appears to be dissolving, replaced by a willingness to sacrifice unity for personal or factional gain. This kind of internal warfare does not remain contained within party structures, as it inevitably spills over into the functioning of government itself, slowing decision-making, paralyzing policy implementation, and creating an atmosphere of uncertainty that affects every level of the state. When leaders are busy watching their backs and questioning one another's motives, governance suffers, and the public sees a ruling party that appears incapable of managing its own affairs, let alone the complex challenges facing the country. The implications extend beyond politics into the economic sphere where investor confidence, market stability, and the reputation of South Africa's institutions are all sensitive veto perceptions of political instability, and international observers are closely monitoring developments for signs that a country could be heading into another prolonged period of uncertainty. Opposition parties have been quick to eyes on the controversy, arguing that it proves the ANC can no longer be trusted to govern effectively. And while such claims may be politically motivated, they resonate with a segment of the population that feels increasingly disillusioned and skeptical. For President Ramaphosa personally, this crisis represents one of the most severe tests of his career, threatening not only his authority within the party, but also the legacy he will leave behind. Ash faces the challenge of navigating a situation that could define how history remembers his leadership. Even if future investigations were to clear his name or discredit the leaked document, the sense of betrayal, division, and mistrust exposed by this episode will not disappear easily, and rebuilding the ANC's image and internal cohesion could take years, if it is possible at all. Ultimately, this controversy is about far more than a single document or a single businessman, as it speaks to deeper issues of accountability, transparency, and moral direction within South Africa's ruling party at a time when the country desperately needs stable and credible leadership. It is a moment that forces both politicians and citizens to confront difficult questions about what the ANC truly stands for today and whether it can still live up to the values that once defined it, making it essential for those who care about the future of South Africa to remain informed, engaged, and willing to look beyond official statements and polished narratives to understand the realities unfolding behind the scenes. Because the way this crisis is resolved will shape not only the fate of the ANC but also the strength of South Africa's democratic institutions and the direction the nation takes in the years ahead.